Well, hello, my soul friends. It is Victoria on the Soul Nurturer channel. And a little late with a transformational topic related video, but better late than never. I, like you, I'm sure, have a lot going on. And but I always feel the call. My heart's always pulling to, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to share? So I have a topic for you, but before I get into it, I want to know, what do you want me to share? What do you want me to talk about? What do you want me to explore? What topics? What do you need? How many videos would you like a week? How long do you want the videos to be? Do you want a different background? What do you want? What do you need? Okay, so this is a hint to my topic. And now, before I tell you my topic, if this is your first time stopping by the Soul Nurturer channel, a channel that is committed to soul nurturing, reclaiming our soul potential, nurturing the potential in ourselves and others, and many other things, transformational tools, soul work, dream work, you name it. It's I've got an eclectic and quite a lot of tools to support us on our journey of unfolding. So if this is your first time, or you've watched my videos before and you haven't subscribed, subscribe now. And if this is your first time, comment now. Where are you watching from? And anything you want to comment. Okay? All right. So those of you who immediately took action when I asked you to subscribe, this video is for you. My topic today is recognizing the people pleaser in us. Yeah. And so my intro was sort of joking, but actually, people pleasing is such a deeply wired coping mechanism, so wired into our identity that it's hard to shift out of it. I am a recovering people pleaser. Anybody else out there who learned when you were younger that in order to get your needs met, you had to focus on other people? You know, this is a adaptive strategy when we're younger. Say you grew up in a, oh gosh, I mean, many different ways. Just basically your needs weren't met. You were possibly, you grew up in an alcoholic household. Your adult caregivers were not available to you. They had their own issues going on. There was conflict. There was anger. There was chaos where, as a child, you learned to just forget about yourself and focus on others in order to feel safe and in order to get your needs met. Now, when we're younger, we are dependent on the external to get our needs met. And what I find that's so very interesting is if they weren't met when we were kids, the wires get tangled. Like, what needs to happen, and in a perfect world, and I don't know many people who had this experience of secure attachment where basic needs were met, and then I call them the unique soul expression needs were met. And we all have, the basic needs: safety, shelter, food, belonging, connection, positive mirroring back. And then there's unique needs to our unique development and our unique soul purpose. And I call that the soul recipe. If we're missing ingredients and we don't get what we needed, what happens is we are still conditioned to look for it on the external. And we are so conditioned to, it's really interesting. I've noticed it in myself and a lot of my clients, where we continually, unconsciously, and that's the key word, seek those needs in other people. And also, I wanted to talk about, this is such a, it's a big topic. And here's the thing, we're all waking up out of our unconscious patterns and our wounded stories and our limited ways of being. so that we can reclaim our authentic soul potential in order to contribute to our collective unfolding. And some patterns, like I said, like this people pleasing, are deeply, deeply wired into our identity. And continuing with these wound-based patterns and beliefs about ourselves, and that's a whole nother video, and I've done a few videos on beliefs, can lead to resentment, and they can lead to burnout and people-pleasing burnout. And I often say to my clients, and I've experienced this myself, that when we're younger, it's like the vehicle we're driving forward in our life, the fuel we're using is the wounded fuel, the inauthentic fuel. And so like people pleasing, well, since we're focusing there, let's just say you've been filling your tank with the fuel to take care of others, not yourself. Well, eventually that fuel runs out because it doesn't support your authentic unfolding. And that's, again, you burnt out, and you can no longer do that. And it can be prolonged. And I'm telling you, if you don't catch this early, I didn't catch it until I was in my 40s, realizing the depth of my people pleasing and how it still very much shows up. So again, back to how this could happen. If you were neglected as a child, you will tend to neglect yourself. And if your attachment needs weren't met, and you fall in the spectrum of anxious avoidant or mostly anxious attachment, you probably learned that it wasn't safe to get your needs met, and you needed to figure out ways, again, those coping strategies, like if I take care of them, maybe they'll take care of me. This is deeply connected to codependency, by the way, too. The manipulation of needs. If I take care of you and hope that you'll take care of me, well, this doesn't work, folks. And it's really tricky because, especially if you grow up and you were really, one of your values is being a kind person, and you love helping others. And so what's wrong with that, right? Well, here's the thing, and here's the clarification. If you're stepping over yourself to take care of other people and you're not on your own list, that's extreme people pleasing, okay? So back to when we're children and how we learn these patterns, if our needs were not met by others, this coping strategy came into play, and the primary need that we're trying to get met with people pleasing, or I'd say needs, is safety. Need to feel safe, need to feel like you belong, you're included, valued, and that you matter. I think that it's deeply tied to feeling like you don't matter unless you're doing, right? And you're trying to earn and gain that. And that is exhausting, isn't it? And that's the fuel that's running out. So people pleasing, what that may look like is, putting others' needs before your own, incessantly and consistently, working hard for others to help them achieve their goals, and not putting very much effort into your own goals. I'll never forget, people pleasers are the best workers. And I'll never forget two things that happened when I was younger. I was in my 20s and I was working, and I'll never forget, I was having a staff meeting, and my boss then highlighted me and said what a good worker I was, and anything you want done, give it to her. And then she said, because I had shared this with her, that I was an adult child of an alcoholic. So adult children are children that had to grow up quicker than their stage of development because there wasn't an adult in the room to help them manage. So they had to immediately upgrade into being the capable one when they didn't feel capable, and that leads to people pleasing and an inferiority complex, feeling like a failure, never good enough. And so what do? We work harder to prove that's wrong. So she said in the staff meeting, she said, yeah, I think she knew I was in ACA at the time, Adult Children of Alcoholics 12-step program, and she said adult children of alcoholics are the best workers. And I think I flushed with shame, which was an indicator of being an adult child of an alcoholic. Any time as a child you didn't get your needs met and you felt outside of the norm can produce shame. Shame is, remember, something's wrong with me, the feeling of something's wrong with me. So I flushed and I thought about it, and I didn't know anything more about, what she meant. And I just tried to hold on to, well, I'm a good worker. I'm a good worker. And we people pleasers get a lot of good feedback for how hard we work and how generous we are and how kind we are and how much we do for others. And we get a lot of validation for that, right? So this wound of a people pleaser, it's like having a vessel with a big hole in it, the container that's supposed to contain self-love, self-worth, self-acceptance, and there's a hole in it. So we keep trying to fix it by doing something on the external, and then it comes in, and for a little bit, oh, we feel good for a little bit, and then it drains right out. We're back to where we started, right? So in another time, I think I pretty much burnt myself out. I was working for the Grammys. It was my last year there. I was told I could not do a job that they'd put me into. They wouldn't pay me for the job they put me into. Let's just say that. I wanted the title that the position came with, but they wouldn't give it to me, and they kept saying it was one person. I will not name that person. He's no longer with the Grammys, but pretty much was reinforcing my not good enough wound by saying, you don't have the degree for that position. And I remember, through some grace, finding some words of confidence, because remember, people pleasers they're not very confident, feel insecure often. But I said to him, you're telling me that I am not qualified to do a job that I am already doing and have been doing for 3 months. And he was like, well, you're not doing the full job. And I that was my wake up from people pleasing and overdoing to take care of other people and not myself. It was a big wake up year. And I went into my direct boss and said, I'm quitting. And she begged me to stay because there was no one else that could fill the position. So I stayed for the low salary and no untitled, what the title I deserved. And it was, in a way, it was an achievement story. I burnt myself out, though. I was working 14, 16-hour days to get this job done. The person who told me I couldn't do the job did apologize and say, you got the job, you got the title. When we go back to LA, we were in New York at the time. And anyway, after I left the job, I ended up leaving. They hired a whole team of people to do the job I was doing. Yeah, this is what people pleasers do. We take on way more than we have the capacity, energetically, emotionally, physically, because we number one, don't want to let anybody else down, and number two, we're so wired for that external approval that it's the Holy Grail, and we'll do anything, even burn ourselves out to do that, right? So think about that. If you're in a job and you do get acknowledged a lot for being such a good worker, and your own home life is neglected, your own goals, you don't even know what you need. You don't even know what your authentic needs are. This is a sign of a people pleaser. So I'm curious if anybody's relating to this. So remember, when you're a child and your needs aren't met, and you don't have the space after your basic needs being met to continue to grow with what else do I need? Authentic needs grow your authentic soul potential. So people pleasers often don't even know. And this takes some reclaiming work, okay? And it takes, I'm probably going to lose a few of you here, but it takes putting yourself first. And you're probably going, what does that even look like? And also then the red alarm goes off. Oh my gosh, you're asking me to be selfish? We have such negative associations to the word selfish, but if you're not taking care of yourself and you're waiting for others to magically take care of you after you take care of them, that's self-destructive. So selfish, if you want to, you don't like that word, think more in terms of self-care, self-fulfilling, if not you, then who's going to do this, right? Okay, so here are some ideas of how to take care of yourself. And this is something I had to learn, and I actually just recently wired it in. Because like I said, my friends, this goes deep, deep, deep. And that is, I used to wake up in the morning. First thing I would do is check my emails, check my messages, respond to my emails, look at my schedule, set up my day around others. And I noticed it with my husband too. What does he need to eat? What does he do? And he'd say to me, I'm not asking you to do that. But it was so like, oh, there's another person here. I got to take care of that person. So deep, right? So I told him first thing in the morning, it's all about me, babe. And what I have started to do, so I do my meditation in the morning and a little bit of journaling, but my thing that I scheduled in, and this is what I encourage you to do, schedule something in for yourself, put it on your calendar until it's wired in that you do that is just for you. And for me, that is bike riding. I love getting on my bike. I love putting on a podcast or music and going for a ride. And then what it does is it fills my inner well first. I'm filling up before depleting myself for others. So also schedule time on your schedule. Actually write it in. Self-care time, soul care time, me time. And do not negotiate that time. It's non-negotiable. It is your time for you to get to know you, to get to know what are your needs. And I do encourage you to do a needs assessment list. What do you authentically need to grow your authentic potential? And this is really, really key, because the reason why we're still wired into these patterns is we still don't feel safe to do anything different. So you need to work with someone like me who helps build that inner safety, inner security through hypnosis and imagery and all kinds of different processes. But you need to create inner safety where you already feel safe and you don't rely on others in order to feel safe, which leads me to something I wanted to talk about, which, we've probably all heard of, or you've probably all heard of, fight, flight, or freeze, right? The sympathetic response to danger or threat. Well, there's a fourth F word that was identified not too long ago. And I did look up the man's name. It was like in 2014. I just ordered a book from him because I was like, wow, I think his name is, Pete Walker. And I just ordered a book from him on post-traumatic stress and also healing that. So Pete Walker, coined the phrase fawning. Instead of fight, flight, or freeze, it's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Now, I never really, and I wonder about any of you, I never felt identified with fight. I never did feel like a fighter. Fight, flight, yeah, I used to run away from conflict, that's for sure. Freeze, that was closer. Like I just be immobilized when there's a lot of external conflict or anger or yelling. I don't know what to do. But when I learned about fawning, which is connected to people pleasing, it deeply resonated with me, and maybe it will for you. So fawning is going into focusing on what does the other person need in order for me to feel safe, in order for me to feel okay to be where I am, right? I wanted to read the definition about it. So this response to trauma, fawning, is the coping mechanism in which individuals develop people-pleasing behaviors to avoid conflict, to pacify their abusers, and to create a sense of safety. Anybody resonate with that? Whew, this was like a light bulb moment. I could see myself everywhere when I learned about this not too long ago, like 6 years ago, fawning everywhere. And I had so much compassion for myself. Years prior, I was in this, I'm not going to go into it, but a training program where I personally felt very shamed when they pointed out, I felt shamed and belittled, and I won't go into that, but they were trying to, I think, point out this fawning to me, but not with any compassion, not with any, healing. Shaming is not healing, by the way. If you're in a healing container where there's shaming and belittling, that's not healing. If your coach or your therapist is shaming you for the way you are, your behaviors and what you're sharing with them, that's not healing. And people pleasers have a hard time knowing that, like, oh, is this normal? Is it okay? Because I almost sweared. I almost had an F word. I almost dropped an F-bomb. Because we put up with so much. to be loved, to be safe, to be seen. Oh, okay. So my wish for you is that you wake up to this, you see these people pleasing patterns, these fawning patterns. There's nothing wrong with you. We all do the best we can when we're kids to cope, to adapt, to survive. And I think that's Pete Walker's book that I ordered. Something about post-traumatic healing, moving from surviving to thriving. And I've been saying that for years. I've been teaching people for years. You don't need to survive, thrive. While I was still in survival mode. And survival mode is so deep. And you begin, as we're waking up, to notice, ooh, I'm doing that coping mechanism in order to feel safe, in order to feel like I matter. So what is the remedy? What is the healing remedy, my friends? Well, inner work, really connecting to yourself, cultivating that safety, identifying your needs, that number one need to feel safe in your body, in your being. And here's what I want to tell you. You know, we lived through a lot that created these coping mechanisms, but those experiences don't need to live in our minds in a way that keep us stuck in that strategy. We are the only ones that have access to our inner worlds now. So we can create them any way we want. The subconscious mind doesn't know real or imagined, past, present, or future. It just knows what you program it with now. So I think it's important to program into your body-mind system that it is safe for you to be you. It is safe for you to have your needs met. It is safe for you to know what your needs are. And it's safe to put your goals on the top of your list. You on the top of your list, okay? So I just want to make sure I got my little healing remedies here. I did say affirm, and maybe put your hand on your heart to make contact with your body. It's safe for me to include myself and to take care of my own needs, to meet my own needs, okay? So identifying those needs, first step. And I think that was all I wanted to cover. I think I went over, I think I got it. Did you like this? Is it good enough for you? I'll tell you what, I'm starting to feel the freedom of not caring. It's so great. Not over it yet. Trust me, not over it yet. But think about the world we live in as I conclude here. So much with the social media that can activate our people pleaser, our am I enough, and what else do I need to do to measure up, to fit in. That, my friends, truly, I've kind of out of Facebook. I'm slowly going to be moving out of Instagram. I post here and there, but I don't engage very much anymore because I was noticing with people pleasers, you can get activated with the comparison to others and how well they're doing. And then we may default back into our old programming that is, oh yeah, if I take care of others, then I'll do better, right? And even this motion I'm doing, it's like that hamster wheel. Just gotta get off the hamster wheel of people pleasing. And let me just say this to you. You matter just as you are. You are a human being, not a human doing, right? And in the beingness, reconnecting to your authentic self, who you truly are, what brings you happiness and joy and lights you up. And do you allow time to do that? And I'll leave you with this. as a bridge to get you from your old, I call it the old neighborhood. And let me say this because I've been teaching my clients and I love that they're really using it. Like they'll call me and say, Victoria, I'm back in that old neighborhood. So I came up with this as a way to describe the unconscious patterning in our minds. The old neighborhood, there's a literal and a symbolic neighborhood. The literal neighborhood we grew up in as a child, what we learned in that house of origin, our family of origin, in the neighborhood we lived, and all those coping strategies, all the beliefs we created in order to understand and identify ourselves. Old neighborhood. New neighborhood is where we want to build the place within us, truly, that allows us to be our authentic selves, to be the person that we were created to be, to create a new foundation that allows us to do that. And that is inner work, my friends. And I do usually with clients' first step, we look at that foundation. How's that foundation? Do you keep falling through the floorboards or do you feel safe and secure in your own being? That's the goal. So I'll say, with this, people pleasing is a very well worn, unconscious path to the old neighborhood. The experience like when you're driving your car, and unless you're really conscious where you're going, you're like driving unconsciously to the place. Oh, well, actually, have you ever had this experience? Maybe you moved in the same neighborhood, but not far from where you lived. And maybe you had a long day and you're tired and you're driving home and you drive to your old house. I think that happened to me once a long time ago. That's the unconscious, patterning taking you to that old neighborhood. So in order to get out of the old neighborhood, you need to vision and identify and map it out. What does it look like to not be a people pleaser for you? What will you do differently? What do you need to believe about yourself in order to live in that new neighborhood? Number one, you need to know that you matter, that you're valued just for who you are as a human being, that you are good enough, and you're a success in your life right now. You don't need anybody else to approve of you when you approve of yourself. So I invite you to that new neighborhood as an ex-recovering people pleaser. What would the opposite of people pleaser be? Oh, I did want to say this. I forgot. The bridge to healing is that you are a people. So please the person you look at in the mirror. Ask them, what can I do for you? How can I help you today? And then you'll switch from the external people pleasing to taking care of the person in the mirror, taking care of you. And then as you do that, then you can give from the overflow, not from being the nice person. I did want to make that distinction. The nice person, and I had an acronym for that yesterday on my walk. The nice person is, neglecting individual care endlessly. That's the nice person. The nice person, like, oh, it's okay. What do you want? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go eat? What do you need? But shifting to a kind person, and I think this is where we get the wires crossed too. We think nice, but more it's kindness. And I couldn't come up with letters for that. I like to play with words to create acronyms to further expand the concept. And I don't think I came up with anything for kind. Something like keeping invested, nurturing desires, something like that. And what that is, yeah, you're included. Kindness comes from you to the other and back to you. Nice is in that old neighborhood. So that's it for now. I hope some of this did help, not from a people pleasing, but from my mission to support and support us all. I say this always on my videos. I do these videos for myself too. I'm included in my own compassion and my own supportive advice. And I hope you include yourself too. All right, take good care of yourself. Until next time, we have a full moon coming up on June 3rd, I think. I barely know when. I think it's the 3rd or the 5th. Full moon in Sagittarius. And by the way, since I haven't said it, happy birthday to my Gemini friends. Let me know if it's your birthday, your Gemini season, your solar return. And I truly care about all of you, and I hope you're learning to care about yourself enough to offer yourself the soul care, the self-care that not only you need, but you're worthy of. Okay, take good care until next time. Thanks for being with me. I do appreciate it. Much love.